Yes.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. The sound is perfect. The lighting is perfect. I'm glad.
So where are you at in the world?
South Africa.
Really? Okay, I couldn't figure out what flag that was when you were sending that to me.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I've done I know a fair amount about South Africa. I just didn't know what the sign looked like or the flag
I'm
was.
glad you didn't ask me if we have electricity. So I guess you are well educated. Because the weird thing is, when people you tell them you're from Africa, they're like, "Do you have electricity?" Like, no, we don't. We use fire. We yeah.
Yeah. How's your day going?
So it was busy, had lunch with friends, and yeah, we're good. Hi, Raps, I see you, friend. Hi, Kutlan, I see you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining. And how's your day?
It's great. It's only 12 here, so we actually just got out of church.
Mhm.
Um, we had baptisms today, so that was cool. So it was just the whole service was baby dedications and baptism. So that was really cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's 7 p.m. this side, and at 8, electricity is gonna go off because we had what is called load shedding. So it's gonna go for 2 hours, 30 minutes because our government is trying to save power. I don't know how, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I have to go at 1:30 regardless. Or like an hour 30 regardless because I have to go pick up or I have to go to a prayer day, and then after that I go pick up my mother who is coming to visit me for the first time since I moved. So really exciting. So
You're gonna be cooked for this week. You're gonna be enjoying food that is cooked by the mother.
I don't know. I really don't know what she's gonna. I'm getting surgery tomorrow on my nose, so she's just coming in for that. So I think she'll do a little cooking, but who knows?
Oh, hope it goes well.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
definitely ask how it went. Let's get into it. I see some of my friends are here, and I'm going to save the video, put it on my YouTube channel as well, in case somebody missed it. And yeah,
you. Okay,
so I'll start
wonderful.
by introducing myself. I don't know if you can say my name though. My name is Nokol. Yeah, yes, Nokolo. Noxie, but my brand name is I'm Intokazie, which simply means I'm a princess. Yeah, I'm from South Africa, content creator, social worker by profession. So yeah, you can introduce yourself as well.
I'm Landen Swain. I usually go by my last name. I live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Well, I live in Lambertville, New Jersey, in the United States. I work in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, for a youth ministry organization. I'm a graduate of Liberty University in Virginia, and I wrote a book on Christian dating culture
You
that
said
came
the
out.
title. I think I love the title of that book more than anything. Please say it so that if somebody wants to buy it, they
Uh,
can look up.
Detox Christian Dating. If you're looking for like a link, it's in the bio on my Instagram. It's
Mhm.
available on Amazon.
I checked it out and I just like, you're on my budget for next month because this month is birthday month. So let me spoil my house first, and then I'll buy the book. But I think it's an interesting topic. I think one of my friends was just like, yeah, it's interesting. It's nobody wants to write about that.
Yeah, it came about because I went to the world's largest Christian university and had a
Mhm.
bunch of conversations with different people about just the stuff that they found was problematic within the dating
Mhm.
culture. Different things that people would say, different things that people would do that was just either unbiblical or just like over spiritualized and just was hurting
Mhm.
people rather than helping. Um, so
Mhm.
eventually I used to host this event at Liberty that was like it's like a, basically like a talent show. And I was the host.
Mhm.
So I was going to do like a thing where I make fun of something on campus to try to prove a point. And we were going to talk about dating.
Yeah.
And as I started to do research on it, I realized that it's like a lot more like toxic than I realized.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so and then the pandemic hit, and I had way too much time in my hands. So I originally it was going to be a blog, and then I turned it into a book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So let's talk Christian dating. According to you, what is Christian dating? How is it different from the worldly dating? Like how is it different?
I'd say it in many ways looks similar, but there's some foundational principles that are different. So the big one being that it's designed to be something that's honoring to God. It's designed to be something that it's two individuals that both love God that are seeking ultimately with the purpose of ending up in marriage, but it doesn't have to. That's part of it. Some people think you got to go on a date and you're basically figuring out if this person is your future spouse in the first date, and it's like, figure out if you like even being around them first.
Yeah, if he even enjoys the food before we talk marriage, and yeah.
At least get your entree first, you know. But it's mainly just like the foundational principles of like, hey, there's certain stuff that you probably shouldn't do, and certain boundaries that you put up, but it's ultimately has an intent behind it, and ultimately it's pointing to the grander marriage of God and the church.
I hear you. So let's just say I go on a date now with a guy. How is it supposed to be according to Landen? Because I always say the Bible doesn't say anything about dating.
It does not.
There's no verse. Literally, there's no verse that says when you date, hold hands. Hold hands. In marriage, we know what is expected. If there are all of those things, but when it comes to dating, it's just like God says, no sex before marriage. That's the only rule around the whole situation. So I go on a date now, or a brother here goes on a date. How is it supposed to be like? What, according to you, because you're the author here?
Like you said, dating is not in the Bible, and I don't want to act like it is. But I think that there are some guiding principles. I think it's just the modern method or tool by which we figure out whether we want to be with somebody. And if you want to get really technical, if you're like, this is the biblical practice, it would be arranged marriages for the most part, because they did a whole lot of like, you're going to marry this person. But every single system that there is has pros and cons. Courting has cons, arranged marriages has cons, dating has pros and cons, all that stuff. I would say mainly it's not solely about just don't have sex, because I don't want it to ever come across that intimacy is the enemy, because I feel like that's setting people up for it's not setting people up for success when they actually get into a marriage. So things like, basically you have to wrestle with your own personal convictions on a lot of things. So it's very not like, I can't claim everything that I have a conviction about on you. I feel like that wouldn't be right. So mainly just knowing what your boundaries are, and then like clearly communicating those things. And if it's holding hands, you're like, hey, that just puts me in a certain frame of mind that isn't good for me. Then it's just verbally communicating that and being like, hey, this is the reason why I'm like this. I know that maybe you want to, and I respect that, but this is just a boundary that I have. And I'd say a thing that I would hope would be a communication difference would be an intentionality, as far as like, hey, this is where I'm at. As with how I'm feeling about this relationship, this is where I'm at in this particular phase of the relationship. I'm not trying to make you think that we are more advanced in this or less advanced in this than we actually are. So I'd say the big key differences are you hold to your convictions, and you also clearly communicate.
Thank you for that. And I think when it comes to the personal conviction as well, what I've noticed, or what I struggled with, is that you have a very unhealthy relationship with God. Maybe in that season of your life, you're not praying as much, you're not reading the word as much, and all of that. So you cannot expect that God will easily convict you. He will be speaking, but you won't hear him, So I think another problem that I've noticed with myself when I was, actively dating, I'm old, is that you have this you are in this weird season where you're just trying to figure out a lot of things and you're struggling with other things, but you're thinking that God is gonna convict you. It's not like He's not speaking, but honestly, you can't hear Him because the world's voice or volume is very high. So, what are the green flags then of Christian dating? Because we, as you said, there's a lot of toxicity around it. Like, dude, okay, let me just say it like this. You'll find a guy, he sees you at church, and then the next thing he's on about, yeah, God said you're my wife. Dude.
you hear the random stories of somebody doing something like that it works out really great, and that's great for them, of just like the sudden, like, you're gonna be my person, and then they get married like a week later and then whatever. And I've heard those stories, and I know couples that have done that and they have great marriages. But you also hear stories like that where it's just a lot of like manipulation. Because actually there's a video on my TikTok right now where people are talking about how, using the expression, God told me that you were going to be my spouse, or God told me that we should break up. And one person was like, the person that I was going on dates with said that God told me you're my future spouse. And then they went on to say, God told me that we should break up. And it's like, well, why did God change his mind all of a sudden? And I think it's a lot of
your video,
yeah, it's a lot of people equating. I'm not trying to gatekeep how exactly God can communicate to people. I don't think that that's right of me. I don't think that it's scripturally clear a lot of times exactly how God went about saying, like, telling people to do things, most of the time through prophets, but I don't know what that exactly looked like. But I do feel strongly about when you say God told me, that communicates a verbal communication. You saying God told me, and it's really, you just feel bad about a relationship, you don't feel right about it, that's very different. And I don't think you can equate those two things together. So as far as your original question, green flags with a relationship, I'd say one is, how do they treat people that they don't want anything from? Not like like if they're anyone can treat the person that they want to date with respect and kindness, that's great. But how do they treat the people that they have no romantic interest in? That's a huge one. I'd say it's good to have a solid faith, but I want to make a note that wrestling with big questions like growing through doubts does not disqualify you from a relationship, because we all of us go through doubts and different things like that. And I don't want it to be like, oh, you have to have some sort of like perfection or doubtless faith in order to be considered a man or woman of God, because that's unrealistic and just not healthy. And so I'd say somebody that is honest with where they're at and is actually putting to practical application the things that they are learning in the Bible and from church. Not that do it to perfection, and there's definitely like areas of growth. Like this past year, I've gotten a lot more convicted about like generosity. I considered myself a generous person before, but like there was a lot of things that just wasn't really like giving over. And so if someone had just seen me a few years ago and been like, oh, he's not that generous, and then just disqualified me all the time and been like, well, I just hadn't had that conviction just at that moment. But seeing how they talk about people, seeing how they practically apply their faith, I'd say is the biggest green flags.
Just to comment on that, and I think it's one of the most important things, because the greatest commandment in the world is love. And you cannot come to me and say you love me, and then you're gonna love me as Christ loved the church. But you cannot love people that you are serving, or your family, and all of those things, because however you treat those people, one way to the other is gonna come back in how you're gonna treat me. And I think the problem that I've noticed is that people think that they can change the next person. It's like, okay, if he dates me, he's gonna change because he loves me, and it doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. And I was thinking about it the other day to say that if I'm gonna find myself in a relationship with a person that doesn't love God, And I'm thinking that they're going to be loyal, they're going to be good husband. What really grounds them? What is grounding them is their love for me will ground them. What happens the day he doesn't like me? Because he won't like me every day. I don't like myself every day. So it now is going to be another person. So I really like, I think that's the most important green flag that I've never thought about as well, to say, how does he treat the people around him? And does he respect his mom? Does he respect his dad? And simple things like that.
Oh yeah, there's and I think every situation needs to be approached with like, this is an individual, because there's some situations where like a mother was extremely abusive to somebody, and so it's harder for them to like see it's harder for them to honor their mother and father because they're just associated with pain. And so it's important to know that, like, while that is a command, it might be a little bit harder for them to actually do that practically because they're working through a lot. And that doesn't mean they don't love God. It might just be, this is something that they have to work through. And I would say a big, I should have said this earlier, a big fundamental of Christian dating, I think, needs to be humility, and recognizing that I'm sure you know people, and I know people that they are not Christians, but they have great marriages, that there's so much love there. And someone just saying that they love Jesus does not mean that they actually do. And it does not mean that they will live that out. Because I know from going to a Christian college, I hear just the same amount of stories of people cheating on their boyfriends or girlfriends. You hear just the same amount about people, like talking to multiple whatevers while someone's dating. And it's sad. And because you're like, well, wait, they're a Christian. And that's why the big thing is their personal character and their integrity, not just their proclamation of faith. So, so if you have a Bible, I think you have a Bible verse in one of your Instagram accounts, like in the bio.
Yeah. What does it say? Sorry.
Yeah, like if you have a Bible verse in your bio.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So I assume that you try to live by that, and that's great. And that's not a judgment.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that for some people it's just like, oh, they have an Instagram. They're in their Instagram bio. They have a Bible verse. That must mean that they're a Christian. Anybody can have a Bible verse in their bio, and that doesn't mean anything. It really is their personal integrity and how they live that out.
Yeah. And I think also, even if a person, I think you mentioned that just because they say they're Christian, it doesn't mean really they live up to the standards of being a Christian. I'm just going to take you back. You spoke about perfection, and I think that's one thing that most ladies struggle with. I'm going to say ladies because I'm a lady. I don't know, guys. So you literally find yourself maybe in this, waiting season it's not easy. Some days it's nice. You feel like, God, I'm glad that I'm waiting. I'm getting to know myself. I'm getting to know you. Sometimes you feel like, where's my husband? Like, I've been wanting my husband. Where's my husband, So, but what I've noticed, what I've personally struggled with is that I expect a person to be perfect when they come to me. It's just like, you must have this, and that, forgetting that I'm not perfect. I'm far from being it. But what am I willing to do? Am I willing to work on my temper? Am I willing to work on my generosity? Am I willing to work on all these things? So I think another toxic trait in our Christian dating nowadays is the fact that we expect people to be perfect. We want this person to come as a full package. You must have a job. You must have a theology degree. Yay! You must have, and so on. What if he's a Peter? It doesn't mean that he doesn't love Jesus. He still does. He just doubted. So yeah, what are some of the red flags in the Christian dating that you can share with us?
Oh man, so many. A big one would be just kind of like they don't live out their faith. That the person that they project themselves to be is completely different than the person that they are behind closed doors or in small groups. If there is a lot of like, oh, look at how much of a Christian I am, but then it doesn't like practically plan out into works, then it's not really doing anything. Like James talks about works and how like, my faith by my works. I want to be able to identify that you, by the way that you treat people and by the way that where your values are, that should tell me how the Jesus that you follow. And if it just doesn't point to that at all, I think that's a huge red flag. I'd say not always, because there's definitely like exceptions to this, but for the most part, if they're using sort of like spiritually manipulative language, like God told me we should be in a relationship, stuff like that, I think that shows in a sense a lack of respect for the reverency of God to just so flippantly say God said this. In the Old Testament, if you said that God said something and it did not come to pass, you were stoned to death.
Hey, come on.
It's a big claim to say that God said something. That's not to say that God doesn't. And I don't want to, like I said earlier, I don't want to gatekeep that, but take personal responsibility for, I don't want to be in this relationship. Not, I'm just going to blame it on the big guy. You know? Some other red flags. I'm trying to think. There's some specific ones that I haven't really addressed yet.
You can say your own. I won't judge you.
I'd say if they, how do they talk about their friends behind their back? Is there like an outpouring of the fruits of the Spirit? Do they actually care about the people when they aren't in the room? I think that's a big one, but that's even a not Christian thing. That's in general. That's with any friendship or anything like that. If you can't leave the room and expect them to like not bash you, then you don't need them. A lot of the,
and also I think,
sorry, go ahead.
Just to add on what you said, I think also how they speak about their ex in one way to the other, it says a lot about them, because it means if it doesn't work out, or the day you're not happy, a lot is going to be said about you. Some of it might be true, but I wouldn't want the world to know. I wouldn't want the world to know my downfall. So,
There's this is not intended to be like I'm doing this great, but this is just like a practical example. I'm friends with most of my exes that I've ever had. Like one of them, I'm actually a better friend with her now than when I dated her. We dated back in high school, and like I talk to her at least once a week. And that's partially because I've had a really bad breakup with somebody before, and so I'm just very intentional about I don't want that anymore. But like, unless somebody, you can be realistic about, hey, this person cheated on me. That doesn't mean that you can't ever acknowledge the fact that they cheated on you. That's probably just wise. To be like, this person cheated on me. But like my friend Izzy, who I dated and I'm still really good friends with, I can acknowledge that, like, yeah, it just didn't work out like that. But like, I don't think that she loses value just because she's not my girlfriend. And I think that there's a lot of, I think that there, in a lot of situations, there are friendship relationships that could melt into friendships if people just handle it maturely and look out for the other person. Definitely not in all situations, because there's some messed up situations out there. But I think in a lot of situations, if you handle it properly and handle it maturely and just say, we're both adults here, we can work through this, then like you can maintain that friendship. It looks different and might be difficult at first, but I think it can be maintained in a lot of situations.
I agree with you, but what I've learned as a lady, when you try to be friends, some of them, they try to come back in your life, in that way. It's like, dude, good brother, but not a good and you'll be a good husband to your wife. And something that you said that I like is the topic of responsibility. And I think that's my huge problem when people say, God said, I must break up with this girl.
Yeah. I remembered another red flag.
You'll be like, no, I don't like her anymore. Just tell her I don't like you anymore. I don't like how you chew. I don't like how you walk. Just say it. Let's stop blaming God. Like, and I don't like it. And that's why I usually say there's a spirit of discernment that is needed as well when somebody comes to me and say, no, see, God says you are my wife. And I'm just like, allow me to go and pray about it as well. And if God doesn't say it, then I don't know which God told you, because